Hey, what's going on? Today I thought I'd do something a little slightly different. Um, we've released a few videos that are just basically introductory type stuff. Um, you know, address some problems we've been seeing, whatever. But it'd be nice to maybe do some different stuff like, me just yapping about what's going on in my brain today. Maybe do some very feeder specific type stuff. Um, Part of the reason why I haven't done it so far is because honestly, you know, part of me really feels like you're constantly judged as you need to put something online. You put it out there and everybody's like, oh. Um, and so I have a fear of like being wrong, giving out bad information and whatever. And I think at some point you just got to say fuck it and just make some videos. And if something's wrong, it's wrong. We'll figure it out later, right? Pretty sure everything that is going to come out is going to be correct. But disclaimer: this isn't gospel. This I will tell you if I'm just going to be in a rant mode or if we're trying to do something more like a documentary type deal. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm getting old. I'll be 40 really soon, and it feels like sometimes my brain works really really well in the morning. And then by afternoon, evening time, it's probably closer to the consistency of silly putty. So try to get, a lot of work done in the morning. Get all my thoughts together. But usually in the shower is when I feel like I'm the most intelligent. So I get out of the shower and I'm like, I got all these ideas. Today it's, I don't know, it's about noon. So slightly past shower time, but not quite to silly putty time yet. I thought it'd be fun to maybe just, give you 20 minutes of me ranting about what's in my brain this morning and throw it up for discussion. Okay. So part of what I was thinking about today was related to technical analysis, patterns in nature, and kind of how that relates to what we're doing. So what do I mean? Well, when I found myself putting some thought into what technical analysis really is and what you're doing. And the process is essentially looking at the past, looking for past patterns, and attempting to extrapolate what's going to happen in the future from that. Does that work? I guess. But I would postulate that if there was an actual system for that worked even 90% of the time, that you would just use that. You wouldn't be botting. You wouldn't be making YouTube videos about it. You wouldn't be throwing them up on TradingView. You would simply use them and be rich and fat. So I have to assume that those things don't exist. Or if they do exist, I don't have access to them. So that brought me to like why do we think about why do we search for these patterns? Why are patterns a thing? And part of that I think is maybe due to evolution, natural selection. Humans that could see the patterns survived longer. If you could see the tiger or the lion in the bushes, you survived to run, or throw a spear at it, whatever. Probably run. I would run. But yeah, so evolution would favor those who could see patterns. There's probably also a general desire, a general human desire to abhor chaos. We like things to make sense, and chaos doesn't make any sense. So we strive all our life to try to find order among chaos. Sometimes, maybe the answer is that's just it. Maybe that's just chaos just is. But that doesn't stop us from trying. Now, the other side of that is things like Fibonacci numbers, Fibonacci sequence, and golden ratios, right? I think I have that pulled up here. Yeah, I got a few. These things do exist in nature over and over and over again. And so if I were not agnostic, I might, or whatever. If I were to say, wow, these things really exist, is this design? Is this grand design? Is this a physical manifestation of some underlying energy pattern that we don't know exists yet? I don't know. But we can't deny that the patterns are there. And if these patterns are in nature, why wouldn't they exist in a chart? And what's a chart, right? A chart is a visual representation of lots of humans and programs disagreeing about the price of any specific thing. That's the whole market's whole job, is to find equilibrium. If we all agreed on a price, the price would do this. It wouldn't do this, right? The fact that it's oscillating means there's disagreement, and it's trying to find that middle line. So during that disagreement process, during that very human process, that emotional process, patterns can emerge. Now, I would probably tend to lean towards those types of technical analysis more than others. Elliott wave is one. I kind of looked into that a little bit. I'm no expert on that, but I get the whole Fibonacci levels and how those are applied. Again, is very subjective. It's akin to I Ching or tea leaves or whatever magic 8-ball you have laying around. There's lots of ways to do it, and there's probably no perfect way to do it, but it can't be argued, or can't be, well, you can't argue with me that it doesn't exist, because I'm going to tell you that it does, right? That's my personal opinion. Why it exists or how it manifests, that's debatable. So what we do now is we have, essentially algorithms, these bots that are trying to use past information to predict the future. That's about as good as it's going to get. Unless, of course, we could talk about, AI. We could talk about other ways you would predict the future. Maybe if you had access to all of Google's information and all of Facebook's information, and you could be smart enough to write something to parse all of that and essentially get human sentiment and emotion and predict over enough time the emotional trends and the keywords, and essentially front run the markets. Possible? Maybe. You or I don't have access to that, right? That doesn't mean it won't come in the future. We'll all get our asses kicked, but that's something. That you could make a rudimentary version of that, maybe even now, and trade on that. And really, price discovery is a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that made me like Ichimoku a lot, is because that's one of its core tenets. Is that the idea is that price wants to be flat. Price wants to be discovered, but it can't be, because not everybody agrees, and so you get those oscillations. And so it's trying to use that to make that cloud, the sentiment cloud is essentially what it is. This cloud that's moved forward, telling you what might happen in the future. It's probably a better way to look at a trend as opposed to some other indicators. Some indicators are very much lagging indicators. Some are a little more leading. An easy example that you might be familiar with is EMA or SMA. Why is it exponential moving average? Is because it's weighting the prices in the front more than the prices towards the rear. With the idea being that what's happened just now is more important than what just happened at the back end of your window, of your candle window. That's a pretty simple way to look at it, but that's essentially what it is, right? You're attempting to get as close to the now as you can with data from the past. So that's kind of essentially what we're at with. So we have these bots that we're telling it, okay, here's all these parameters, and say, okay, go predict the future. And if you got it wrong, buy more. That's what DCA is, right? You jumped in and, oh shit, I was wrong. All right, buy it again, and again, right? Until you run out of money or you exit on profit. I do have a picture. Let me see. I have a picture that I saved from an experiment I ran in October. Let me see if I can grab that. I don't know why it's on here, but whoops. Yeah, that's it. So I was was trading Ripple, and honestly, I don't even remember what settings I used here. I know that it was a specific test to attempt to see if I could make money in a down market. It was definitely using DCA. I think it was like a low BB, and I know that I had set to zero limit. It was essentially buy until I run out of money. And it worked. You can see how aggressive that was. That's a 15-minute chart, by the way. So you can see that this is highly aggressive. This was a tight butthole moment right there. I think I did it 9 times or something, right? But to make that work, your initial entry has to be really, really low. And the problem with that is you see something like this. I bought here, it sold there. I made no money there, right? Here I made money, right? Here I made good money. But some of these earlier ones, with an initial entry low enough to do this, if it happens to spike right afterwards, it's not even worth the trade. So you have to make a couple of assumptions. You have to assume that your price is going to drop. So, dude, sometimes it'd be better just to not trade in this. But for this particular one, I decided, A, I was cool with buying more Ripple. B, I made this my only pair. I wasn't trading the whole market. I took all my money and I went to this one. And I have to kind of know that we're coming into a downtrend. Is it the smartest way to trade? No. The smartest way to trade would be to know where these bottoms are. Boom, boom. How do you know that? You can't. That's the whole problem. Now, Trailer does a really good job of trying to find these dips, and you can see, I mean, it's making purchases usually the best it can. Now, these are, I think I was probably looking at 5-minute candles, and this is a 15-minute chart, which explains, some of these in-betweens. But it thinks it was doing really well, but again, I told it, use as much money as you want until I run out. So, can you make money in a down market? Yes. Would I suggest anybody do this? Probably not. Again, I don't have the chart. In fact, it's on Bittrex. I can't even go look this up again. I wasn't really, I don't know. It was just kind of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of thing. I could probably reconstruct that, and maybe I will if anybody cares. I just would never put my stamp on it and tell you to do it. Anyway, the idea being that yes, you can DCA your way out of pretty much anything if you have enough money. You cannot do something like this if it's across the market. It would just be stupid. You'd have to have big fat stacks. That's my wife. Anyway, so that's one thing. So what I want to do is for the second part of this, I'm going to pause this and we're going to pop open a config, and I'm going to go through it, not line by line, but we'll go through and grab certain parameters that I would change, and maybe I'll try to talk about what's going on in my head as I'm looking at each number, and hopefully that'll give you some insight into how to start changing your own stuff and what to look at and what dorks like me think about when we're looking at a config. There is no one that's going to make sense for everybody. Okay, everybody's got different risk aversion profiles. Everybody has different amounts of money they want to spend, and everybody has different ways to attack a market. There's various strategies here. You'll find that even the buy levels, the buy strategies, they're all kind of the same at the end. There are nuances. There are some that work better in a bull market, and some that work better in a bear. We can't switch markets with feeder yet, but I'm going to hope that's coming. There's a beta we're working on right now. Should release here in a day or two. I'm going to go over that later today. Yeah, so there's some pretty cool stuff that can be done, but I wanted to be better about not caring what comes out of my mouth a little bit, a little bit more, and just providing you guys some content, and hopefully that helps somebody. So anyway, enough of that. Let me pause this, and then we'll jump into part 2.